So as we were saying, this is important celebrations that are taking place. People have come here and gathered, and they are taking place, and people are expressing their testimonies and are referring to what is important day it is, the day of struggle for the independence of the indigenous resistance. This is a day that marks the 550 years of indigenous resistance, and symbolic activities are taking place all across the country. And in this case in particular, the President Nicolas Maduro is taking part of this ceremony, participating, as we are seeing on a screen, a very large crowd that has gathered here and is attending and recalling the heritage of the resistance of the indigenous peoples at the forefront of the independence struggles against the colonial empire of the time, which was the Spanish Empire. Now, and this is the context. In this occasion, this type of national day, which was changed. This is a day that in some countries, like the U.S., is celebrated as Columbus, as the day of the discovery of the American continent by Christopher Columbus. But in the late 20th century and 21st century, many countries have reaffirmed the history and heritage of indigenous people, and they mark this day as the day of national resistance, of indigenous resistance, the day that marked the beginning of the resistance, of the struggle of resistance of indigenous communities against the colonial empire, against the colonial empires of Spain that date back to 533 years. In the case we are seeing the life in Venezuela, people are gathered here peacefully, but this is not the case, for example, in Ecuador, where we have had reports during the day of police repression of the Ecuadorian indigenous movements that were also taking part in peaceful demonstrations marking this important day, and the police to repress them with tear gas and different actions to prevent them from reaffirming and defending their rights, as they denounce that they are being criminalized just for the fact that they're demanding their rights and protecting their heritage. A complete different scenario that is being lived here in Venezuela, as we can see in our screens, where in the past 2 decades, indigenous people have been put in the spotlight of the policy making of the nation, a way to incorporate the indigenous communities to the Bolivarian nation, but also respecting their traditions and their own cultures. And as we were saying, they take part in the different elections that take place, for example, for the National Assembly, and they do their elections not in accordance with their own laws and their own traditions, which are respected by the Bolivarian state, and making sure that the indigenous peoples of all Venezuela, of the different regions of Venezuela, are fully represented and their voices are heard at the National Assembly.